Lake Vostok. Beneath the Antarctic ice sheet lies a massive freshwater lake sealed off from the surface world for over 15 million years, entombed under nearly 4 kilometers of solid ice. Lake Vostok represents one of the most restricted research zones on the planet, with access so tightly controlled that fewer people have visited it than have walked on the moon. In 1996, Russian scientists finally pierced through the ice and made contact with the water below, discovering life forms that shouldn't exist in such extreme conditions. Bacteria and microorganisms thrived in absolute darkness and crushing pressure at depths exceeding 3,700 meters, suggesting fundamentally different biochemistry than surface life. The organisms possessed genetic markers that appeared incomplete or corrupted by time, as if they belonged to an earlier evolutionary period existing in stasis for millions of years. International scientific teams requested immediate access to conduct comprehensive biological studies, but their applications were systematically denied by governments claiming environmental protection concerns. The real reason for the restriction became apparent when researchers analyzed the limited samples that did emerge through official channels. The microbial life showed evidence of advanced adaptation to conditions that modern biology couldn't explain using conventional Darwinian evolution models. Genetic sequencing revealed patterns that suggested either contamination from surface organisms or biological specimens far older than known evolutionary records would permit. Some microbes appeared partially fossilized despite being metabolically active and reproducing, a fundamental contradiction that challenged everything we understand about the aging process and evolutionary timescales. Within weeks of these findings being analyzed, the entire lake was placed under international quarantine restrictions coordinated between governments and the United Nations. No further drilling expeditions were permitted. All research data was classified, and the few scientists involved signed non-disclosure agreements that remain secret. The fear seemed to be that whatever lived in Lake Vostok might reveal information that would fundamentally alter our understanding of life's origins and the timeline of biological development on Earth. Area 51. In the Nevada desert, approximately 83 miles northwest of Las Vegas, the United States military maintains one of its most secretive research facilities. The official designation remains classified, though Area 51 has become synonymous with UFO research and extraterrestrial technology development. The facility sprawls across 6,000 square miles of restricted airspace where conventional aircraft are forbidden. Multiple former military officers and engineers have testified that Area 51 contains not just advanced aerospace technology, but actual recovered extraterrestrial vehicles and the remains of non-human biological specimens. Construction records reveal subterranean complexes extending hundreds of feet underground, including massive hangar structures capable of containing objects, far larger than any conventional military aircraft. Scientists requesting access to Area 51 for any research purpose are universally denied, regardless of their credentials or the nature of their inquiry. The restriction isn't limited to foreign researchers, but applies equally to American scientists seeking legitimate information about publicly acknowledged projects. Government officials maintain that the classification protects national security and advanced weapons technology development. However, radar imaging suggests that the facility contains multiple structures incompatible with known aviation technology. Satellite photographs reveal landing pads arranged in configurations used by no known aircraft design. Electromagnetic sensor data shows radiation patterns emanating from underground areas that match no documented military installation. Employees at Area 51 sign agreements that effectively prohibit them from discussing their work for the remainder of their lives, creating an information blackout so complete that mainstream science has no legitimate access to information about what occurs there. The systematic denial of scientific access suggests that something discovered or developed at Area 51 couldn't withstand peer review by independent researchers. The Bermuda Triangle. Between Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico lies a region of the Atlantic Ocean where ships and aircraft have disappeared at rates far exceeding normal maritime accident statistics. Over 1,000 vessels and aircraft have been reported lost in the triangle, with remarkably few bodies or wreckage ever recovered. Scientific expeditions have been repeatedly denied permits to conduct comprehensive research in the region by international maritime authorities. The stated reasons cite environmental sensitivity and navigation hazards, but declassified government documents suggest far different concerns. Electromagnetic anomalies in the Bermuda Triangle exceed any natural geomagnetic disturbance measured elsewhere on Earth. Compass readings become unreliable. Electronic systems malfunction, action simultaneously across multiple vessels, and radar installations have recorded impossible phenomena, including ghost ships appearing on screens with no corresponding visual sightings. Sonar mapping reveals unusual geological formations beneath the triangle, including massive underwater methane hydrate deposits and what appear to be artificial structures arranged in geometric patterns. The structures don't match any known natural geological formations, and their dimensions suggest intelligent design. Independent researchers who have attempted to investigate these underwater formations have found their research permits canceled and equipment confiscated by maritime authorities. Oceanographic institutions requesting deep-water diving expeditions to examine the formations are systematically denied access. The scientific community has been effectively quarantined from investigating the most anomalous region of Earth's oceans. Water samples from the triangle show unusual chemical compositions with trace elements not found in normal ocean water. Magnetic properties of the water itself appear enhanced compared to normal seawater, suggesting either natural enrichment processes unknown to marine science or contamination from unknown sources. The Mariana Trench. The deepest part of Earth's ocean represents another zone of restricted scientific access. The Challenger. Deep plunges nearly 36,000 feet below the surface, a depth so extreme that only a handful of human-piloted expeditions have successfully reached the bottom. Most expeditions are military-sponsored with classified objectives, and civilian research requests face constant delays and denial. The pressure at such depths should render most organic compounds inert, yet biological systems thrive in the Challenger deep with remarkable complexity. Scientists who have returned from deep expeditions report encountering organisms that appear completely unknown to marine biology. Some creatures displayed anatomical features incompatible with evolutionary paths that produced surface life. Internal organs showed arrangement patterns that conventional biology couldn't explain. Genetic analysis of tissue samples from trench organisms revealed DNA sequences containing gaps and anomalies, suggesting either evolutionary dead ends or specimens that had been deliberately modified. When marine researchers attempted to publish findings about unusual trench organisms, their papers were systematically rejected by peer review committees. Journal editors reported receiving instructions to decline any submissions discussing anomalous deep-sea life. University funding for trench research dried up abruptly, despite decades of consistent support for oceanographic programs. Independent oceanographic organizations discovered that sonar mapping of the trench revealed impossible geological formations, bonds. The seafloor contains geometric structures partially buried in sediment, arranged in patterns too organized to be natural. When researchers attempted to retrieve samples or conduct detailed scanning, military vessels appeared in the area and forced civilian research ships to withdraw from the region. Mount Kailash. In Tibet, the sacred mountain of Mount Kailash has been traditionally avoided by climbers despite its relatively modest elevation and accessible terrain. The mountain sits in an area where the borders of China, India, Nepal, and Bhutan converge, creating a complex political and military zone where access is restricted by international agreement. Scientists requesting permits to conduct geological surveys and sample collection at Mount Kailash are universally denied by Chinese authorities. The stated reason cites religious sensitivity and environmental protection, but declassified documents suggest geological concerns. Geological surveys conducted before access restrictions were implemented revealed anomalies in the mountain's composition. Stone samples showed unusual crystalline structures and mineral compositions that didn't match surrounding Himalayan geology. Some samples displayed properties suggesting artificial processing or exposure to temperatures far exceeding natural volcanic conditions. Electromagnetic field measurements taken at Mount Kailash showed patterns inconsistent with normal planetary magnetic fields. Localized disturbances suggested artificial sources or geological phenomenon producing electromagnetic radiation at unusual intensities. When geophysicists attempted to expand their research, access to the mountain was immediately revoked, and all previous survey data was classified. Alternative research methods, including satellite imaging and remote sensing equipment, have produced images suggesting massive, underground structures beneath Mount Kailash. Ground-penetrating radar detected what appeared to be caverns of unusual size and geometric regularity, arrangements too systematic to be natural cave formations. Attempts to publish these findings in scientific journals were rejected, with peer reviewers citing insufficient data or methodological concerns. International attempts to fund independent research at the site have been blocked by coordinated government action from multiple nations. The Atacama Desert. In northern Chile lies the Atacama Desert, one of Earth's driest regions, and paradoxically a location where scientists have made discoveries they refuse to fully investigate or publicize. The desert soil is so dry that microorganisms barely survive, creating conditions that resembled Mars more than Earth. Researchers discovered unusual mineral deposits containing isotopic signatures suggesting extraterrestrial origin. Meteorite impact zones pockmark the landscape, and analysis of impact materials revealed anomalies. Some impact debris showed evidence of advanced processing before impact, suggesting objects other than natural asteroids had struck the region. Archaeological excavations in the Atacama have revealed artifacts predating known human civilization by thousands of years, showing technological sophistication that conventional archaeology insists is impossible. Ceramic items bore markings that resembled written language but matched no known pre-Columbian script. Metal objects showed composition and craftsmanship inconsistent with tools available to ancient peoples. When researchers attempted to continue excavations, permits were revoked, and archaeological sites were sealed off by the Chilean government. International teams requesting access found their applications denied without explanation. Government officials suddenly declared the entire excavation area an environmental protection zone, banning any further disturbance. Geological surveys in the desert revealed underground cavities in patterns too regular to be natural formations. These cavities appeared to extend across hundreds of kilometers in geometric arrangement. When researchers attempted to investigate these structures, military forces arrived and secured the area. All previous research data was confiscated and classified under national security orders that prevent scientific publication. The Dead Sea region. Beneath the Dead Sea and in surrounding underground caverns lies evidence of ancient civilizations far more advanced than accepted historical records acknowledge. Sealed caverns discovered by accident contain artifacts and documents that contradict mainstream archaeological understanding. The scrolls and objects found suggest technological sophistication incompatible with the ancient period they allegedly represent. Archaeological expeditions attempting to excavate these caverns systematically encounter restrictions imposed by Israeli military authorities and international coordinating bodies. Access permits are denied for researchers requesting to examine the most significant cavern sites. Government officials cite environmental and security concerns, but declassified documents indicate that the contents of these caverns present historical and religious implications that authorities prefer to suppress. The artifacts include mechanisms resembling astronomical observation instruments, medical devices of inexplicable design, and documents in languages incompletely understood. Some items appear manufactured, using techniques unavailable until modern times. Thermal dating of materials produces contradictory results, suggesting either fundamental flaws in dating methodology or specimens whose age remains indeterminate. International scientific conferences discussing Dead Sea region artifacts are routinely canceled after pressure from religious and government organizations. Journal editors receive instructions to reject papers analyzing materials from sealed Dead Sea caverns. Researchers who publish findings about the region's artifacts face professional consequences, including funding denial and academic isolation. The systematic suppression of research into Dead Sea region archaeology suggests that accepted historical timelines and narratives are being deliberately protected against evidence contradicting established orthodoxy. Poveglia Island. In the Venetian lagoon lies Poveglia Island, officially restricted from civilian access by Italian authorities. The island served as a plague quarantine station centuries ago, and was later a mental asylum where thousands died under mysterious circumstances. Official records of deaths at the asylum are incomplete and contradictory. More documented deaths occurred than the island's physical capacity could accommodate, suggesting undocumented burials and unreported fatalities. Archaeological investigation of the island reveals burial grounds far exceeding documented burial records. Ground-penetrating radar shows underground structures and chambers incompatible with known historical construction. Excavations reveal skeletal remains showing evidence of surgical procedures and medical experimentation incompatible with asylum treatment standards of that era. When archaeologists attempted to expand investigation, the Italian government revoked access permits and sealed the island entirely. International research requests are systematically denied. Military vessels prevent unauthorized approach to the island. The few researchers permitted limited access have reported unusual phenomena, including electromagnetic anomalies, acoustic disturbances, and biological samples from the island showing abnormalities inconsistent with normal human remains. Some skeletal material appears partially calcified in ways suggesting exposure to extreme environmental conditions or chemical processes. Physical examination of remains reveals modifications to bone structure and internal cavities suggesting either disease patterns unknown to modern medicine or deliberate physical alteration. The evidence suggests that Poveglia Island may have been a location for unauthorized medical experimentation on human subjects. The systematic access denial prevents verification of these hypotheses by independent researchers. The Lascaux Caves. In France, lie caves containing some of the world's oldest known artwork, painted by humans approximately 17,000 years ago. The caves were sealed to public access, ostensibly to preserve the paintings, but the actual reason appears to be suppression of inconvenient archaeological evidence. The artwork depicts objects and scenes inconsistent with known prehistoric human knowledge. The paintings show astronomical phenomena with remarkable accuracy, including star configurations and celestial events. Some depictions appear to represent astronomical events that wouldn't occur again for thousands of years, suggesting either incredible coincidence or knowledge of astronomy far exceeding what prehistoric humans supposedly possessed. The paintings also show what appeared to be mechanical devices and technological apparatus, objects that couldn't possibly reflect prehistoric human experience or imagination. Hidden chambers discovered within the cave system contain evidence of habitation patterns and artifact arrangements too organized and sophisticated to match archaeological understanding of prehistoric cultures. When researchers attempted detailed analysis of the most anomalous artwork, access to those sections was restricted. The French government allowed no photography of specific panels and permitted no detailed scientific analysis. International conferences discussing the cave's astronomical significance have been canceled after government pressure. Papers submitted for publication analyzing the artwork are systematically rejected by peer review. Research funding for Lascaux studies was abruptly terminated despite decades of consistent support. The systematic suppression of research into the cave's most anomalous features suggests that authorities prefer maintained historical narratives remain unchallenged by archaeological evidence. The Copper Canyon. In Mexico lies the Copper Canyon system, deeper and larger than Arizona's Grand Canyon, yet remaining far less explored and documented. The canyon contains restricted zones where archaeological research is prohibited and military activity is intense, despite the location's remoteness. Indigenous peoples have avoided the canyon for generations, describing it as a place where normal physical laws cease to function. They describe temporal distortions, disappearances, and electromagnetic phenomena that afflict visitors. When anthropologists attempted to conduct research with indigenous communities about the canyon's history and significance, they were denied permits and warned against unauthorized exploration. Archaeological teams requesting surveys of the canyon have found access blocked by military personnel. Government officials cite drug cartel activity and violence as reason for restrictions, but the military presence far exceeds what criminal activity would justify. Remote sensing equipment has detected underground structures within the canyon, showing geometric arrangement suggesting artificial construction. These structures predate any known indigenous civilization occupying the region. Radar penetration of canyon walls reveals massive cavities and chambers in configurations too systematic to result from natural erosion. When researchers attempted to investigate these structures, military forces secured the area and confiscated all data and equipment. Published research attempting to discuss anomalous Copper Canyon geology is systematically rejected by journals. International scientific expeditions requesting access permits are universally denied. The combination of geographic remoteness and heavy military restrictions suggests authorities are protecting something they wish to remain unexplored and undocumented. These 10 locations share a remarkable pattern. They are places where scientific investigation is systematically suppressed, where access is tightly controlled despite official explanations, claiming environmental or cultural protection, where evidence contradicting established narratives has been discovered. What unites these restricted zones isn't coincidence, but deliberate policy. Each location contains evidence that challenges fundamental assumptions about human history, planetary geology, biological evolution, or physical laws. The suppression isn't limited to one nation or one scientific discipline. Coordinated international efforts prevent research at these sites. Access restrictions transcend political boundaries and military conflicts. This coordinated suppression suggests that a shared understanding exists among global powers about what certain discoveries would mean if widely known and scientifically verified. The pattern suggests that certain truths about our planet's past, human origins, or the nature of reality itself are being deliberately protected against scientific scrutiny. Lake Vostok contains evidence of life forms that predate known evolutionary history. Area 51 reportedly holds technology or biological specimens of non-human origin. The Bermuda Triangle displays physical phenomena contradicting established physics. The Mariana Trench harbors organisms biologically impossible by conventional understanding. Mount Kailash exhibits geological anomalies suggesting artificial intervention. The Atacama Desert contains artifacts and evidence of pre-human civilization. The Dead Sea region holds documents and mechanisms incompatible with accepted historical timelines. Poveglia Island appears to have been a site for clandestine human experimentation. Lascaux Caves display astronomical knowledge impossible for prehistoric humans. The Copper Canyon conceals underground structures of unknown origin and purpose. Why would governments cooperate internationally to restrict scientific access unless what these locations contain would fundamentally challenge established worldviews and power structures built upon accepted narratives about human history and planetary science? The systematic denial of access, the classification of research data, the rejection of papers attempting to discuss findings, the termination of funding, and the intimidation of researchers all point toward deliberate information suppression. Science should operate through open investigation and peer review, yet these locations remain closed to legitimate scientific inquiry. The places where science refuses to go are the places where the most important truths may be hidden. What would we discover if we were allowed to investigate? What knowledge is considered too dangerous for public awareness? These 10 locations represent not just geographical mysteries, but institutional failures to pursue truth wherever it leads. The greatest threat to established power is not what we can see, but what authorities desperately work to keep hidden. These restricted zones suggest that someone knows something about reality that contradicts everything we've been taught, and they're willing to spend enormous resources ensuring that knowledge remains hidden from scientific scrutiny and public understanding.